ICQ Podcast episode 479, Baofeng UV-5R Mini review. Well, hello fellow Amateur Radio enthusiasts, and welcome to episode 479 of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported by our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, Dan Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, Caryn KD2GUT Uniform Tango, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss the latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BRY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is a review of the Baofeng UV-5R Mini. Well, as always, it's your very kind support that keeps your ICQ podcast advert free, and we love the way you show the value for your ICQ podcast. So please do consider us if you get value from today's show or any previous shows by visiting ICQPodcast.com/donate, where, as I say, the donations you send our way go towards the running cost of the show and keeping your show advert free. So we really do hope you take the time to check that out. While we're here as well, please don't forget our next ICQ Podcast Digital Talk Group Net will be on the 4th of April. So check out ICQPodcast.com for the times there. So there's always presenters and listeners on that talk group throughout the day anyway, but I say there'll be an official talk group net on the 4th of April. So do check that, I say dates and times, etc. for all the talk groups for 2026 on the ICQ Podcast webpage. Right, now we're going to join Martin, Dan, Caryn, Edmund and Ed to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including FO29 renews activity and protection for antenna towers. As always, hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Podcast. Come for a moment. Stay for an hour.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to the ICQ Podcast, episode 479, and tonight's news roundtable for that episode. Tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP. Hi, Ed.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Nice to be back on again.
Yeah, I thought I'd announce you all in different orders today, just for the fun of it, because let's go with it. But I should have done ladies first. So we have Caryn Eve Murray, KD2GUT. Hi, Caryn.
Hi, Martin. Good evening, everyone. And it's fun being out of order.
I'm always out of order, yeah. I got asked today. We went out for lunch, Colin and I, and the nice lady in the cafe said, "So how are you keeping?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to keep out of trouble, but I'm failing miserably." She looked at me and giggled. Oh, dear. From your side of the pond, we have Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU. Hi, Dan.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, good to have you, mate. And last but not least, not that far from me, compared with the rest of you, is Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, good to have you, mate. And as I say, I'm sure we'll have some fun tonight with some of these news stories. First news story, I quite like this one. FO29 enters full sunlight orbits now. It's a Vectran satellite, and it was launched in August 1996. Yes, 1996. It's 30 years old. Its batteries have died, but while it's in permanent sunshine, it's usable. Ed, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I can do. I actually remember FO29 trying to listen for it back in the 90s. Not successfully, I'll add. But yeah, you get from the number 29. It was the 29th amateur radio satellite put up there. We're now up, what are we, 110 or something, or certainly over 100 with the QO100. So this is a 30-year-old satellite. Not only that, it's actually a satellite that's a transponder, so it's not just an FM mode, it's actually multi-mode, so mainly sideband and CW, and of course it'll do digital. So really a good example of when you build something right and you build it well, it will last. The only thing that's failed on it is the batteries, and it's been on and off operations over the last few years because of where the orbit is. Now, as its orbit is now slowly moving around the Earth, in other words, its position relative to the Earth, it's now got into a path where it is actually in sunlight the whole of the time. So now it's on for the next, I think, 2 to 3 years, they reckon, where it'll be, fully operational, fully available once you're in the shadow of it. So once you're in range of it, and that's blooming fantastic. It really is nice to see that things that are made 30 years ago are still working as well as things that are made 30 days ago. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, you're dead right. And some of the things that I've seen about 30 days ago, I question. But quality. I'm going to go to Edmund next. I know you're not a big satellite person, but 30 years of technology. I mean, not many of us have got things that are 30 years old in our house that still work, have we?
Yes, things were made to last in the decades gone by, weren't they? You're speaking to someone here who shamefully is still yet to have his first QSO through even one of the FM Easy Sats. So it goes without saying I've not used this one or have ever heard it, I don't think. But as Ed has said, the fact it's in constant sunlight now for a while means it's fully operational. It's an inverting satellite, so it's a transponder rather, so I don't know if FM would work through it. SSB or CW would, and the bandwidth is 100 kilohertz, so it's as wide as a couple of the HF walk bands, which is quite something. That seems rather a lot to me. I thought most linear transponders were a bit narrower than that. So yes, listen out for it, and if you have a go at putting a signal through it, then the very best of luck, but I don't think it's going to be me putting a signal through it. Martin, back to you.
Edmund, let me just jump in there quickly. While technically an FM signal will go through, it's frowned upon because it actually flattens what's left in the batteries a lot quicker because it's constant carrier, and desenses the whole range if you put a carrier signal into it. So while technically it is any mode, it's frowned upon if you put FM through any of the linear satellites. That's why there's so many other alternatives.
Oh, okay. But wouldn't the inversion side of it completely mangle the FM signal, notwithstanding?
Good technical question. I don't think so. And of course, it'll depend whether you're frequency modulated or phase modulated. If you're phase modulated, it might. Anyway, that's too deep of a rat hole to go into this evening, Edmund.
Well, either way, I'm not going to try it.
Well, there you go. So, Caryn, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, I think it's really good that it's this 30-year-old satellite that's still working.
Well, in our discussion before we began the formal part of the program, I was delighted and kind of joked that how many of us will be working in 30 years, much less any technology. But I think I'm not a satellite user, and I've never tried a satellite for a QSO, so I want to say that up front. But just in a general sense, I think that the fact that something launched so long ago, that it's functional, that it's gotten a new breath in its lungs and can bring great enjoyment to people and great communication is a good thing. I mean, think about all of the rigs that were made 30, 40, 50 years ago. The fact is that many of them endure. Whereas think about the cell phone you were using 5 or 6 years ago. I'm probably the only person on the planet, or one of the few. I still have the same cell phone now for I don't know how many years. I want to say 8 or 9, and at some point it is going to become obsolete. So let's celebrate the good old veterans of the sky. Let's celebrate them, and I hope as many people as possible make good use of this satellite and enjoy it, and I hope there will be a lot written about it and plenty of logs uploaded so we can see who's talking to who. So I'm happy about this story, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, well, you weren't the only one who still had a very old phone. I had a Samsung S8. And I was quite happy with it, but my daughter upgraded her phone. Carol and my daughter upgraded their phones, and I ended up with my daughter's old phone, which was a major update for me. So I don't know. I can't see any benefits to me yet, but I know I'm being negative on this. Dan, do you remember this one going up, or have you any thoughts on this one?
No, I tell you the truth, I wasn't even very active in 1996. But like the others, I think that the fact that it's still working is fantastic. And I'm, I've joked about this in the past. I've only made one satellite contact in my whole career here in ham radio. But maybe I'll try and find somebody that's got an IC 9700 and take my satellite antenna over to their house and see if I can work this thing, because I think that would be kind of cool.
Well, you have to come a long way to use my 9700, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't get there, but I think probably a guy or two around here in Ann Arbor has one.
Yeah, I'm sure it's quite a popular radio. But all in all, I think the really good thing is it's technology that's carried on working. Okay, its batteries died. They were never intended to take that many charges and recharges through them, and the technology of the batteries died. The batteries will probably die in most things, but while it's running in sunlight, the solar panels will make it useful again, which is good news. Right, move to our next news story. New Indiana law protects ham radio antennas and towers. Now, I got quite excited about this, and then I realized that it's kind of only for new things, new NOAs going forward. And you pointed this one out to me, Caryn. Do you want to go first on this one?
Absolutely. Like you, Martin, when I saw this story, I said, whoa, this is great. The states are doing or starting to do what we're still waiting for the federal government to do, which is to protect ham radio operators and their equipment in living in residential communities with these restrictions. So I immediately went to the website for the government and looked at the language, and my heart sank. And I realized, yes, this is protection, but this is not quite what it seems. It is only, as you said, for the newer language that is put in for HOAs that didn't already restrict, or for new HOAs forming that intend to restrict. So this is protection for people going forward. Not quite the same thing. And I'm really hoping, really hoping that when the federal measure passes, and I hope it will sometime soon, that it does not have the same wording. I'm hoping it will be retroactive, that it will be binding for communities that now restrict, that it tells them you can't do this, you must allow it. Is it totally just is it useless? No, it's not useless. It's still good to have. It sets an example, first of all. It will be helpful for people in the newer communities or those with newer language that's being worked on. It draws attention to the issue, and any action in that direction is still good. So I'm glad to see it. I'm just disappointed that it didn't protect those who are still, trying to hide their antennas in a bush or a flagpole. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I know what you mean. On that. But the thing I thought was good about this is that it's a start in the right direction. It's, as you say, if people in Indiana are sensible, then other states will look at what they're doing and potentially put in similar operations, and then hopefully central government will sort it out. And the other thing is, those that have had the ban on antennas, if it's not deemed as a complete eyesore, then maybe they'll come round to changing their rules. I don't know. Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I was surprised that it was Indiana, actually, because Indiana is considered to be quite a conservative state here in the U.S. But I, like you, Martin, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I think that, any movement in our direction, so to say, is a good thing. So, it might be a little bit disappointing, but, we have to temper our expectation.
I think you're right, Dan. But, once we get good news out there and we can show that these are not eyesores and one thing or another, then I think more people will probably come round. So,
well, yeah, that's what I say. I'm with you. I'm a glass half full on this one.
Yeah. Well, my antenna's been up so long now. All the neighbours have moved in around me. And if I'm totally 150% honest, I have a HF vertical at the bottom of the garden that's been there 20 years. What nobody realises is it's a faulty antenna that I bought for the square root of nothing, and I put it up so that when I change it, it's been there. There's always been an antenna there and nobody will complain about it. And I haven't got round to replacing that one yet. Bit of naughty on my part. Edmund, what's your thoughts on this NOA? I know we don't have it quite so bad in the UK.
No, well, it's HOA, isn't it? What does it stand for?
Homeowners Association.
Well, no, we don't have a direct equivalent, although I think if you live in a house in an area of outstanding natural beauty or something like that, there can be restrictions imposed on what you can do. But the point I was going to make, Martin, you actually put very succinctly a couple of moments ago, which is that even if somebody lives in an existing HOA with rules in place, if going forward these new HOAs happen where antennas are allowed to be put up and they don't end up turning into eyesores or being covered with massive great towers with huge Yagis on top of them, then maybe over a passage of time that might persuade the existing HOAs to reconsider their stance. And of course, whilst I would never encourage anybody to do anything that they shouldn't, don't forget that any antenna will look considerably smaller when it's up on your roof than when it's sitting on the floor at your feet. And a Yagi for the 2 meter or 1.25 meter bands probably would look very similar at rooftop level to a VHF FM band 2 broadcast antenna, and a 70 centimeter Yagi would be virtually indistinguishable to a terrestrial TV aerial. So I'm not telling you what to do, but you might want to bear that in mind if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's another opportunity, as you say. Well, as I say, my feeling is, in fairness, with a HOA, HOAs don't want to have, or amateurs don't want to live on an HOA with lots of other amateurs, because we'd be interfering with each other. You're probably, in HOA standards, you're probably only going to have one amateur, or only one amateur will want to be on that anywhere near another amateur, because when we're transmitting, we don't want to suddenly find I can't use 40 metres because Fred up the road is running 80 metres or whatever. It's and interfering with each other. So, hopefully it'll all get sorted fairly soon. Moving to our next news story, and this is an interference, and it says radio interference has landed US airlines with an £8 million or dollar bill to fix faulty equipment on Boeing 787s. Now, there's a lot about this news story. It's these sensors seem to be affected by CW or military transmissions. So it's not only amateurs. It's not saying it's amateurs, but it starts to worry me that the timescales they're talking about fixing, and why should the airlines pay it? Ed, I know you had thoughts on this one. Over to you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just to say, this is part of the aircraft that actually signals where it is. And as well as it being used to track where an aircraft is, which is useful if anything ever happens, it's also used by systems that automatically ensure that two aircraft don't suddenly appear in the same place at the same time, which you also want to avoid, obviously. It appears that the units in use in the Dreamliner, the Boeing Dreamliner, have a design fault. We had a story on this about a year ago, I think, and it's come round again. What surprises me, if you read the story on the website, is that the FCC is ordering the airlines to take care of this. Well, I would have thought a fault on an aircraft, certainly a fault as severe as this, surely it should be the aircraft manufacturer who is doing a pullback of them and repairing them. In any case, towards the end of the text, it says it's expected to take 4 years. While this is a safety item on the aircraft, I think 4 years is a bit of a long time, and I just don't understand why this isn't something that Boeing are doing. And basically, these aircraft do have to have maintenance on a regular basis, and as such, it should be part of just put into the next maintenance, replace this unit with one that isn't faulty or isn't susceptible to interference. Yeah, there's so many things about this story where I go, A, since it's been around for a while, why hasn't it already been fixed? And B, why are the airlines being asked to pay the bill, not the aircraft manufacturer? Anyway, that's probably above my pay grade to know that kind of information. But yeah, let's hope it gets fixed quickly. And in the meantime, I probably will be avoiding flying on any 787 Dreamliners, but those tend to be the more expensive routes, so I wouldn't be flying those anyway. Back to you, Martin.
Well, yeah, I understand, Ed. But the other thing is, if the airlines are having to pay this or stump up the money, guess what's going to happen, guys? Your tickets are going to go up in price because they're going to have to recover this money from somebody. So we're being hammered for a fault that shouldn't exist. And I think this should be a Boeing issue. Like you, Ed. And 4 years is far too long to wait for things to be fixed. Dan, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, so I was just looking at the thing from the FAA called the Airworthiness Directive, and I'm not sure that it says that the airlines must pay that. But talking about the 4-year period, well, that's maybe not so unreasonable in that the manufacturer of the transponders, which by the way happens to be Collins Aerospace, Collins of the Collins amateur radio line fame, they'll have to come up with some fix for this. That'll certainly take some time, and then the new transponders will have to be manufactured, and then they'll have to be installed. So, 4 years, may be 4 years before they can get around to all fixing all of these the airplanes. I think that if it was an incredibly important safety measure, they would move up the timeline, but probably it's not that critical. So you guys can decide not to fly on 787s, but I don't think that I'm quite so skittish about that. Yeah, I guess that's my comments. It's kind of funny that they didn't find this in the initial design and production of these units. But now that they know, they can hopefully add that to the test protocol for new designs.
Yeah, well, that's a good thought, Dan. And, I know you're a CW operator. You can't take the blame for it. You're not the only CW operator in the world.
Well, listen, that's the other thing. I don't think my 100 watts is going to affect any airliner, even if they're flying directly over my house. And so, fortunately, I'm not in the flight path usually for the Detroit airport. So that's usually not a problem, at least where I am. So.
Yeah, I was being naughty, Dan, as always. So, an interesting news story. Hopefully, it'll get fixed pretty soon. And to me, safety is important. I know Dan's not sure. He's saying that yes, it is a safety issue, but they're not deemed as a mega safety issue. So they haven't grounded the planes, put it that way. Right, Ed, once again, I'm going to go first with you. This is a terrific news story. Tennessee approves credentials for amateur radio technician licenses. So, nice one. Gives people a bit more credibility on getting an amateur radio license, doesn't it, Ed?
Yeah, what it really does is, what's happened is that in Tennessee, they've got the technician class license recognized as a tier 1 qualification. And so a technical qualification. And for young people looking for jobs, my point on this one is that if you have somebody that's applying for a job, having just left college or school, in either case, and they have an amateur radio license, it would previously be looked on as, yeah, nice, it's an extra thing you've got, and you've got some practical experience perhaps in electronics or in space communications or in radio in general. But in this case, not only is it that, it then goes and ticks a box that says this in Tennessee is actually considered a valid qualification, similar in some ways to what you might get from a training college. And it's a benefit, and it's a benefit for the person having the license. Now, it's also a benefit for amateur radio, because if you're competing against somebody who's got this one extra qualification on their CV, you're more likely to go and get it yourself as well, and maybe you'll then stay in the hobby. I think this is something that should be promoted more. I mean, this is the kind of thing that once this has happened in one place, in this case it's the state of Tennessee, perhaps there should be, in the case of the ARRL, we always go back to the national body, but let's just say the ARRL at this case, it might be the RCA, it might be another group, should be actually trying to get this happening in other states of the US as well. And not only that, but the equivalent, if it's possible, in other countries. So in the UK, in Germany, in Australia, in India, wherever. The amateur radio license is a technical training to a certain level. Obviously, the full license is a higher level than the technician, but let's start off with the technician. It does give a basic introduction to electronics, to electronic safety, and to technology in general. And since people are currently, young people having to put the effort in to learn that, to then pass the exam, if they can then use that on their CV when they're looking for a job and have, if you like, an advantage over other people, then good on them. And the more they can do that, the better. So I think this is a really great story and a really great sign that perhaps, all those people that are saying, well, we've tried this to get new people into the hobby, we've tried that to get new people into the hobby. This is something that actually will give a payback for all the effort that's needed to get the license. That's what I think anyway, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good thing. And as you say, we have to study The license in the UK, and I'm pretty sure it is the same similar parts of the world, but it is for gaining technical knowledge in radio and radio communications. So, yes, you learn a bit of electronics, and as you progress up through the grades, but you become far better at understanding worldly problems. If you understand how things work, then you have a much clearer mind going forward. And I think it's quite a good thing. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I have to say, Martin, I love this story. I think this story is fabulous news, not just for the reasons you and Ed have pointed out, but I just want to add to that. When I got my technician license, 2014, there was this great push to upgrade, as if your technician license, as if it weren't real, as if it weren't a point of pride, like, oh, well, not that you had to be ashamed of not being a general or an extra, but it was like, oh, well, you're just a technician. Well, a lot of people get their technician class and stay happily as technicians, and that's absolutely fine. This is validation for the value of a technician. Why not be proud? And why not formally recognize the value that this brings? A lot of people who work in the MCOM sector, either as volunteers or for pay, have their technician's license, and that serves, my goodness, that saves lives in times of disasters and chaos, and it helps at public service events to prevent accidents or it helps in rescue. This is what a technician's license can do. They can do a lot. So I'm so pleased. I'm so very pleased. Now let's get the other states on board if they're listening, and let's give some love to the technician license. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, I think you're dead right. I've come across technicians and the equivalent in the UK of foundation license holders. Sometimes the person doesn't want to go past that, because what that gives them is the license to do a bit of experimentation with antennas or whatever, and they're allowed to transmit. What I think a lot of amateurs do fall into the thing of, oh, well, technicians don't know what they're talking about, or foundation license holders don't know what they're talking about. Guys, I've met some very clever ones. Listen, I might hold the extra in the States, but I've never needed power-wise. Normally, when I go to the States, I take a handy talkie, 5 watts max. I could do all that with a technician license. Okay, but there are people that I've met that don't want to go any further, but they're still very technical. When you ask them things, they're not sinking violets there. So I would say, this is a good one. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Well, like the HOA story, I think our enthusiasm needs to be tempered a little bit. So I did a little research on this, and in a presentation describing these Tennessee industry credentials, it says, let's see, I'm trying to find where this is. It says there's 3 tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and T3. And you might think tier 1 is the best, but actually it's the lowest. Tier 1 is the lowest value credential. While valuable, employers and industry value these credentials least of the credentials on this list. So again, just like the HOA thing, while it's a good thing, yeah, in the overall scheme of things, it may not be as great as we were hoping for.
Yeah, but Dan, at least it's something where somebody else doesn't even have that lowest grade.
Well, yeah, no, I'm saying I agree with that, and so I, for a while around here, I was talking with took part in some venture capital kind of meetings, where they're, entrepreneurs and all. And at one of them, I mentioned, yeah, I'm a ham radio operator. And the guy says, oh, I love hiring amateur radio operators because they know how to do things. And, that's true. Hams know how to do things. So I'm not poo-pooing this, but again, we have to take this with a little grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's not a university degree, but right. It's something, especially if somebody's perhaps not going to university and leaving school directly, as well as their exams that they do at the end of the normal school or college or training college. It's one more that, it could just swing a job for them.
Oh, I agree. And I always, if anybody ever asks me, I always say, make sure you put on your resume that you have an amateur radio license, because that is an achievement, and it does say something about you.
Yeah, and if an employer that knows absolutely nothing about radio now says, what's an amateur radio license? In Tennessee, you can say, well, it's on your list of Tier 1 qualifications.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but equally, if a technician is a Tier 1 and this works, and then they may look at and say, well, your general becomes a Tier 2 and your extra becomes a Tier 3. Let's be honest about it. You've got to start somewhere, and it's one state at least dipping their toe into the water and trying to make it make sense. And as you say, amateur radio people seem to have a let's do it attitude rather than a sit back, oh my God, that's too difficult. We tend to get our hands dirty. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure to what extent I get my hands dirty. Yeah, echoing what's been said already, this is good news, because if you're a young person going for a job, then even if the role you're applying for, even if amateur radio is not directly relevant to it, the very fact you've gone out of your way to study and get the license when you didn't have to, but you've taken it upon yourself to do it and have succeeded in getting the license, that demonstrates an ability and a willingness to learn, and that will always stand you in good stead with a potential employer. And it could be that that's the one degree of separation between your application and somebody else who hasn't done it. So good news indeed. And going off topic slightly, talking about the various levels of licenses, I would always encourage everybody to upgrade your license if you possibly can, even if you think you're completely satisfied with the privileges that your current level of license brings you. Because if my experience is anything to go by, the extra privileges at the higher level that you will end up valuing could be entirely different to the ones that you think you're going to value, if that makes sense. So in my situation, I wanted to upgrade to the full license for two main reasons. Number one was that I could then legally transmit on the 60 metre 5 megahertz band in the UK, which currently anyway is a privilege reserved for full licensees only. And the second benefit was that I wanted to be able to transmit whilst abroad. In reality, since I upgraded in 2013, I've not really done very much of either of those things, but the thing that I have really valued the full license for is that it allows me to hold notices of variation, so I can hold special event call signs, and I'm also able to hold club call signs. Back when I upgraded, I don't think the idea of either of those things had even crossed my mind. So My advice is, if you can do it, and I appreciate not everybody will be in a position to, but if you can do it, it's always worth upgrading, because you may ultimately be pleased you did, not for reasons that you think you'd be pleased, but for reasons that today haven't even crossed your mind. Back to you, Martin.
Oh, yes. And one of the things I'll close up this on, I always say to people, any knowledge is good knowledge. You put it in the back of your mind, and when people start talking about all sorts of things, if you have an appreciation of what is going on, then you can spot the people that are talking rubbish and, and avoid them. Well, don't pick the fight with them, but you avoid them. But knowledge is something that you take with you. And I think, you take to a new job, and if somebody is saying, something rubbish about Wi-Fi, well, Wi-Fi is just another version of radio. And if you understand the principles of radio, then you're already ahead of half the IT people putting in Wi-Fi. So that's my theory. Is you get more knowledge. The more knowledge you got, the better it is for you, and you can bring some really good things to your employer. So that concludes the news stories, unless anybody wants to say any more on that one. Right, let's find out what the team have been up to since the last time we sat round the table here, or the virtual table. And we always go ladies first, Caryn. So what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, Martin, I've been making up for lost time. The last time we got to this segment of the podcast, I said, haven't been doing very much. It's been snowing. I've been getting on the air. I've been dealing with bad band conditions. Grumble, 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 grumble. One of those reports. Well, this week, let's see. I completed my first POTA activation of the season about a week ago. It was, as Ed and I call it, it was PLOTA, parking lots on the air. I did sit in my SUV, but God, it felt good. It just felt good to be out there. Secondly, two things we completed. There was a 7-day event, the Worldwide Award for YLs, which is a magnificent activating event. Not a contest, but an activating event for YLs literally around the world. And it was really fabulous. I did it entirely as a CW op. I heard some amazing fists. Some days under terrible conditions, some days under good conditions. I worked more countries than I ever thought I might, even though I don't think any of the contacts push me closer to DXCC. I am stuck at 86, but we're working on it. But it was just fun, and to be part of a community of people around the world all doing this. I joked with some of the women in our chat group. I said, I've never, ever been chased by so many men. So that was kind of neat. And again, all very, very good ops, a very excellent operating experience, a very positive experience. And I would encourage anybody who has doubts about whether they could do something like this and enjoy it. I almost did not sign up for this because I thought it was going to be too much like a contest, and I'm not a contester. This is not about that. This is not about competition. This is about community and communication. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. So big thanks to the organizers and to my fellow activators and those wonderful hunters. Moving right along, a Kilo Oscar DOG, which is the Dog Day Radio Amateur Radio Club, formed as a result of team activations for International Dog Day. We are in full swing with different events. We just completed the Canine Veterans Day event earlier this month, activating in recognition of all dogs who have supported troops in the military throughout history in any country. We are very proud, very appreciative. So we did that just for 2 days, just to see how it went. Very bad band conditions, but again, we're not about numbers, we're about communication. This coming weekend, which will be the Sunday that this podcast comes out, and the following day is National Puppy Day. And I want to thank DD5LP. I want to thank Ed for finding this holiday. We are activating once again. Please work us. Kilo Zero DOG, Kilo Zero DOG. We are advocating for humane and fair breeding of dogs or rescue of dogs. We are advocating against the horrible practice of puppy mills and just general appreciation of what little puppies can do to bring joy to our lives. Please visit the QRZ page for Kilo Zero DOG and see what we're all about. Okay, and finally, soccer is coming to North America, and I was asked if I would help with the home team. No, I'm not being asked to play. Okay, my athletic talents are definitely overstated in that department. No, I was asked if I would help organize with W2C for the New York, New Jersey area. Okay, we really need activators. We're desperate to get people on the air for this. It is not going to be a 2-month-long activation. We're only getting on the air when the games are being played in the New York, New Jersey area. W2C is the call sign. And again, activating in support of international friendship, in support of friendly competition on the pitch, and just in general being together as a community. So that my great challenge right now is finding activators. So please, people, I'm not a sports fan, and I have agreed to be a part of this because it's important. And who knows? Maybe I'll watch a game. Hey, you never know, right? That's it for me, Martin. I will send it back to you.
Well, Caryn, you hit a spot for me, didn't you? Because Colin was over at the weekend and he took me to soccer on Saturday and I watched his team lose. And he took me to soccer on St. Patrick's Day yesterday on the 17th for a night match. And his team had a draw. So, okay. I've been to 2 soccer matches in the last few days, and I'm not a football fan. But there you go. So, nice one, Caryn. There you go. You might enjoy it. If you're like me, you sit back and just take the atmosphere in. Right. Dan, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, before I get into that, I have a kind of at least I think it's humorous World Cup soccer story. You know, my wife is Mexican, and all her family lives in Guadalajara. And one year, I forget what the year is, it's been quite a while, we were down there during the World Cup, when the World Cup was going on. And, you know, my Spanish is not that great, but we were sitting there watching the game, and the game was Russia against somebody. And they said, "Oh, Dan, you're Eastern European. Pronounce the names for us." So I would pronounce the names for them of the Russian team, and they got a big kick out of that. Anyway, I've been up to my usual here. Always busy with ham radio. A week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, when this gets released, I taught a couple of classes at the Southern California Linux Expo. And it's the first time I taught 2 classes in a row. And I tell you, by the time the second class was over, I was pretty tired. But the first day went pretty well. We had 22 people in the class. 19 got licensed, passed the test that day, and one came back and passed the test the next day. So 20 out of 22 for the first session. I didn't do quite so well in the second session, only 12 of 18. But I'm going to follow up with those folks that didn't pass and see what I can do to help them get their licenses after all. But that was fun. It's again teaching a class on at a venue that you don't traditionally associate with ham radio. I'm also working on my books. I have to update the tech study guide. I'm hoping to, and I'm updating my CW book too. I'm hoping to get these done by Dayton so I can have something to show at Dayton. And speaking about Dayton, they approved my proposal for a talk. So I'll be talking at Dayton about teaching one-day tech classes, and I'm going to throw in some something about my experiences teaching the classes at these hacker conferences. So that'll be fun. And last but not least, I thought I just mentioned this, but the Linux in the Ham Shack podcast is back on the air, as you might say. They've released two new episodes, and if you were a fan of that podcast, you might go to their website, lhspodcast.info, and pick up again where it was left off. Yeah, that's it. Back to you, Martin.
Well, sounds like you've been busy, Dan, and enjoying yourself, which is a good thing. And shame I'm not coming to Dayton this year. I sat in on your talk, seriously, on that one. I would love to have seen that. But good one for you, Dan. Okay. Ed, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, actually, something that you get into quite a lot, Martin, circuit fault finding. In my case, it's been some of the Chinese amateur radio board. Last time on the show, I mentioned that I'd been pulling my hair out, trying to sort out, and successfully sorted out in the end, a low-pass filter board where the wrong components had been put in and the wrong number of turns, etc., on some of the toroids. And now I moved on to the amplifier board. So I have an amplifier board that's an RF amplifier, 30 watts HF, and it doesn't want to amplify. You turn the power off and you get 2.5 watts in and 2.5 watts out. You turn the power on, it switches into transmit, and you get zero out. So, that's my puzzle at the moment. Brand new board. And I'm just trying to sort out what it is. But of course, you hit this issue now. Say, for the cost of the board, my time is actually worth more than the cost of the board. So logically, you'd throw this into the bin and just buy another one that hopefully from the next batch works fine. But where's the fun in that? It's actually good to find the faults on these boards and fix them. I think, Martin, you've said that before. You get as much fun out of fixing a faulty board as when it comes and it's working, or less fun when it's working. As always, something on the antenna front. I've actually put up my 20 meter VP2E, and that's not the call sign of somebody in Barbados or whatever, although it actually is. It stands for a vertically polarized 2-element, and it's a directional wire antenna. And so I put the 20 meter version of that up at home now, and I'm testing that to see how it performs compared to my main antenna, which is a 40 meter sky loop, which also works on other bands. Interesting. Being vertically polarized, the noise levels are higher, and the signals seem to be about the same, but radio conditions have been a bit weird over the last few days, so it's a bit too early to say whether it's better or not. The radio weather's been strange, but the other weather has improved, so I've actually managed to, at last, to get out and do what I would call a real portable activation in a field. I even did that with my little G106 5-watt QRP radio with its new microphone. I bought a different microphone for it and wired a new cable into it, and it gives a lot more drive. And part of that, I had 15 contacts in about an hour on 20 meters sideband, one of which was into Australia. So, and just using a dipole at about 5-6 meters high. So, shows what you can do when you're out away from all the metro noise on at the right time of day, which for me over here is about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh yeah, and I'm still busy editing books as well. So yeah, I've been quite busy, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, certainly sounds it. Edmund, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Well, if you're listening to this on the morning of release, which is Sunday the 22nd of March, then if you're in Kent, and particularly if you're in the eastern half of the county, the next edition of the Dover Radio Rally is happening, and I'm planning, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, being there. Doors open at 10 o'clock in the morning, and officially it runs through until 2 o'clock, although I would suggest not leaving it till the very end if you were going to turn up. And it's in a new venue this year compared to previous years. It's in the village of Eastry. I think that's how it's pronounced. So looking forward to that. I haven't got anything in particular in mind to buy. I always find it best not to have a shopping list in mind because I'll invariably be disappointed, but always like to wander around rallies and see what's on sale. In terms of actually being on the air, I have been trying to have at least one contact every day on 2 meters, and that's going quite well. I've been keeping a list, and I've managed 27 days out of the last 31, and so far I haven't had any duplicates either. Most of those contacts have been simplex rather than via repeaters, but the very noticeable thing is that almost all of the contacts happened because I called CQ first. There have only been about 3 or 4 days where I've responded to somebody else who called CQ first. So I know we've said this before about lots of different bands, but it's certainly true in my experience. If the band is very quiet, then don't wait for somebody else to call CQ first, because otherwise you could have loads of licensed listeners, all of them saying to themselves, the band is dead. But if all of them don't call first, then no voices will be heard on the band. I'm still trying to learn CW, getting there slowly but surely, tying my brain in knots sometimes. The letters L for Lima and R for Romeo, I do seem to get confused with each other quite a lot because they are quite similar. And I've been playing around with my Zygu X6100, and there has been a new release in the last couple of days of the unofficial R1 CBU firmware. So I've got the latest version on my Zygu. I don't think it's radically different to its predecessors, but the team behind that are up to version 0.33 now. So if you're running an earlier one, you might want to have a play around with the very latest version of that. And last but not least, coming up in the next few weeks, Saturday the 18th of April is the next edition of 145 Alive. And because that is the third Saturday in the month, it also coincides with the Support Your Parks weekend. So on that day, assuming the weather's all right, because I'm very much a fair weather operator, you see, assuming the weather's okay, I'm going to go somewhere in the South Downs and be active both as POTA and for 145 Alive, and support Your Parks weekend into the bargain. But beyond that, Martin, I've not really done very much at all, and certainly not on HF. But I hear that the bands haven't been particularly good the last few days, so maybe I haven't been missing out too much. Martin, back to you.
Yeah, Roger. Well, they weren't particularly good yesterday, but I'll come on to that in a minute. Okay, what have I been up to? Well, Colin's been over, and apart from taking me to 2 soccer matches, Colin owns a ICOM ID 52 Plus, and because he's in Ireland, he can't use it but we've been trying to work ways around it. So I got told that you could set up Pi-Star and on a Raspberry Pi without the hat on it, the MMDV hat on it, and plug your ID52 in terminal mode. Well, I spent over 8 hours on it while he was here. I couldn't get it to go. I also managed to get him to register for D-Star, so that was some of the problems. And I have had his ID 52 Plus working through my hotspot, both as my call sign and his call sign. So some of you might have seen him on over the weekend in the UK using his proper radio with RF. However, late Tuesday, we were messing around with a piece of software called Doozy, and that you can turn your radio, your 52 Plus into a terminal mode and use this piece of software, Doozy, written by a Dutch gentleman. And I got that working, and Colin appeared on the talk group, and our Phil down in Western Australia worked him. So that configuration does work. So hopefully Colin will be online via terminal mode from Ireland. The only thing is he's got to dig out an old one of his old Android phones, because the software doesn't run on the Apple phone he's got, but it certainly worked with my Android phone, so Colin's got to do that. We did do a bit of operating at the club. I took my Zygo G90 there, and there's pictures. I didn't realise Colin was doing this, but there's pictures of me operating on Tuesday on the ICQ Facebook page with my G90 from the car and my 17-foot mobile whip. It's a one of these pull-up whips, so that works. I have been involved in getting GB3XP back on the air with Martin Rothwell. That was off for a little while. It's now working again. Did a talk for Pennine Hams last week, which I think went down very well. I've also been given, by Colin bought me one anyway, one of these new Baofeng UV-5R Minis, the little baby thing that's quite small, ideal size for a youngster's hand, and quite an interesting radio. Seemed to work quite well. The other thing is, we did do the ICQ podcast digital talk group on the 7th of March, and we have 15 people join us. Countries involved, the US, I saw call signs from the US, Germany, Italy, Australia, and Thailand. A gentleman in Bangkok called in and said he's going to try and do it again. So if you want to work some interesting people with a digital radio, then join us on our talk group. The next ICQ podcast digital talk group net is on the Saturday the 4th of April, which I believe is Easter Saturday. Probably not the best day, but it's the first Saturday of the month. And you need to check the times. They'll be on our website. I should have brought it up, but I'll send a notification out over the internet. So that's probably most of what I've been up to, and quite a few other things as well. But they are the major things I've been up to since in the last couple of weeks. So I think we've all been pretty damn busy, which is a good one. So all that's left to me to do, the guys, for turning up tonight, and we'll move on to the next part of the podcast. I'd like to thank Mr. Dan Romanchik KB6NU.
My pleasure, Martin.
No problems, Dan. No problems. I'd also like to thank Caryn Eve Murray KD2GUT.
It's always fun, Martin. I'm looking forward to that QSO with Edmund.
Yeah, it won't be long now. I'd like to thank Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG.
Thanks, Martin. Great to be on.
Yeah, good to have you as always. And last but not least, our Ed Durrant there over in Germany, DD5LP. Thanks for joining, Ed.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Always fun.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'll say 73s and we'll move on to the next part of the podcast. 73, guys.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief with me, Colin M6BOY. We start off the news in brief section here with a item forwarded us to by Bill Baker. Bill tells us about exciting news concerning 630 metres at Dayton Hamvention. And there'll be a forum entitled Introduction to 630 metre Operation, moderated by Paul Dobowski, Kilo 8 Papa Delta, who designed the low-down antenna and many of the products that are offered for the 630 metre band. As a result of Paul's article in a recent issue of QST magazine, there's a heightened interest in operating the band. The forum is tentatively scheduled for the Saturday afternoon, so if you're planning to be at Hamvention, I hope you will attend the forum. Paul is looking for 1 or 2 active 630 metre operators who will be willing to share their experiences on the band with attendees. So if you let Paul know you're planning to go to the event, he'd appreciate it from there. You can get Paul's details on QRZ, and we'll also pop his email address for you on ICQPodcast.com. So say if you're attending a Hamvention and you've got an interest in the 630 metre operations, it certainly could be an interesting forum to check out. In the UK, ICOM UK have equipped the National Radio Centre at Bletchley Park with an IC905 all-mode transceiver as part of its ongoing support of the RSGB and amateur radio community. And the latest addition to the Radio Shack there ensures that visitors and volunteers to Bletchley Park have access to the latest VHF, UHF and SHF technology. So it's going to be covering sort of 144, 430, 1200, 2400, 5600 megahertz and 10 gigahertz bands for everybody there. So say praise there to ICOM. For passing over that transceiver for that important method of promoting the hobby there at Bletchley Park. And I'm sure there's still availability that if you're an RSG member, I think you can get free access still to Bletchley Park and the National Radio Centre by contacting the RSGB. Check that out if you're a member. It's one of the member benefits that you can avail of from there. The ARRL is suggesting that everyone starts planning for Field Day. It's only a few months away. It's going to be taking place on the 27th and 28th of June, and it's aiming to bring more than 30,000 amateur radio operators together for the most popular on-air event in North America. This year's theme is amateur radio and national resource, and it's combined with the ARRL Year of the Club. So it's a perfect opportunity for radio clubs to set up stations in public places and demonstrate their radio science skills and service to communities and the nation at large. The overall objective of Field Day is to contact as many stations as possible on 160, 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metre HF bands, as well as all bands above 50 megahertz. So lots to get organised for. There is a special page on the ARRL website that we will post on ICQPodcast.com for you that you can check out for resources to help your Field Day go with a bang. So hopefully you'll take part there. News coming from Columbia in the States that a judge in a district court has reversed the decision taken to shutter the Voice of America radio service and has ordered the journalists to return to work to the news service and resume broadcasting. Judge Royce C. Lambeth had earlier ruled that the appointment of Carrie Lake, who was in charge of the layoffs and the shutdown, was done illegally and effectively avoided all the layoffs. Voice of America was founded in 1942 to combat Nazi propaganda in World War II and has been broadcasting in 49 languages to over 360 million people around the world when it was shut down. The judge's ruling stands and the VO Voice of America's goal is to return back to that level of output. And now, this doesn't affect at all the Voice of America Museum and Amateur Radio Club in Westchester in Ohio, which is a popular attraction during Hamvention. Guys, if you get to go to Hamvention, you've got to go and have a look at this museum. It's a fantastic opportunity to see the history of our hobby. That is still open anyway and not affected by the judge's ruling in any way. And we finish up with news from WRTC, and it's a confirmation that WRTC 2026 will be continuing the approach of the last event in 2023 in Bologna, Italy, by not permitting national flags or symbols around, say, the teams. This is basically to create a sort of fairer, competitive edge where people aren't necessarily contacting a station just because they want to try and give points to their own country, etc., sort of thing, and to, I suppose, to create as possible as even a field as possible. So as I say, it's nothing nefarious at all along those lines as can be with some of these sort of contesting events that are going on in different sports and hobbies. I say it's just really to keep things on a nice level playing field. So say if you're looking out for a certain country, etc., I say it won't be evident by national symbols from that point of view from there, but that's just to let you know. Right, we're going to head over to our features episode, and this episode's feature is a review of the Baofeng UV-5R Mini. As always, hope you enjoy.
And now for this episode's feature from the ICQPodcast.
Hi there, it's Chris M0TCH here. I thought I'd talk today about a new handheld radio from Baofeng, the UV-5R Mini. Baofeng have now been around for a little while. Believe it or not, they actually started in 2011. I've got a video on YouTube going back to then from their UV-3R radio, and they then released the UV-5R back in 2012. This new radio is dual bands and FM, just like the original. It has 999 memories, which is actually a lot more than the original, and they claim it has 5 watts of RF output. In reality, I found it was slightly less than that. It's also got a low power mode that's has got a 2 watts of output. In the hand, it's quite a nice size. It's around about 3 3/4 inches high. It's about 2 inches wide, and it's about 1.5 inches thick. In metric, that's 9.5 centimetres high, 5 centimetres wide, and about 3.5 centimetres thick. So it's a little bit smaller than the original UV-5R, but it's a nice size. It'll fit in your bag, and it's quite a nice fit in the hand. Certainly, it fits in my hand very well. Comes with an aerial. So that's about 3.5 inches on 9 centimetres. On top of that, and it's got a reverse SMA connector. You got a choice of colours. Or the front fascia comes either green, orange, black, or grey. Comes with a little flashlight or torch on top. There's a button you can press, and it will either go into steady or flashing modes. And I mean, I suppose the main thing is this is extremely cheap. I bought mine from AliExpress. I think I paid about £21. I've actually seen them since down to about £15. So very, very good value for money. I don't think this is actually badly made. The plastic seems to be reasonably thick. It seems to be, certainly from feeling it, like a reasonably robust radio. The front of the radio has a keypad, which has got rubberized buttons. They're quite small, but I can press the buttons of that without too much problem. And then above that, you've got a 1.44 inch display, which is colour and backlit, which is an improvement. The original UV-5R had a 2-line monochrome display. This has got now a proper full colour display, although I don't suppose you really need to have colour on a radio, but it's nice to have. On top, you've got a volume knob. Like I say, it's got the flashlight or torch, so it's like an LED. On one side, you've actually got 2 PTT buttons. I'll come on to that later. And another function button as well. On the other side, you've got a connection there for a Kenwood type 2-pin speaker mic as well. So, yeah, that's the sort of basics of the radio. In terms of using it, basic operation, so you've got the usual VFO mode and memory mode. There's a VM button on the front to change between those. To change frequency, you either type the frequency in the front, or you can use the up and down arrow buttons to change frequency. There's no knob to change the frequency, unfortunately. It's all done via buttons. The bands this will work on, so it will work on the 2 metre band, but it will actually go from 136 to 174 megahertz, so much wider than we're allowed to use. You've got to be a little bit careful that you don't stray out of the amateur bands. You certainly don't want to transmit outside of those frequencies. On the UHF or 77s bands, this goes from 450 to 470 megahertz. It will also receive on airbands. It will transmit on airbands, which is a good thing in my opinion. And it will also receive on FM broadcast bands as well. So you can listen to FM broadcast. Have to say, for the airbands, for the AM receiver, is not very good. In my opinion, I wouldn't bother with it. If you're going to buy a radio for listening to airbands, this isn't the radio to buy. It's got some nice convenience features. So you can do a frequency scan. So if you've got a radio nearby, you want to figure out what frequency it's on, you can scan for that and it will pick it up. It's not immediate, it takes a few seconds for it to run, but it will pick up the frequency of a very nearby transmitter. And it will also do a tone scan, so if you want to find out what CDCS tone is being used, then it will also find that as well. And it will do that on both the VHF and UHF frequency range that I mentioned there. It supports DTMF tones, so if you're using that for something like Echolink, you can use that on this as well. It has a voice option. I always turn it off, but if you're visually impaired, that might be quite a useful feature. It also has Vox. So if you're using a headset or something, you can actually do that without having to press the PTT. It'll just work off your voice, and you can set different levels, I believe, for that. My impressions. It's a nice radio. I've used it a few times now. I've used it through repair. I was over in the Norfolk area a few weeks ago, and I put it on test. I worked a few people through a couple of different repeaters in the area, got some nice reports, so the audio is good. The range, the people, I've heard other folks giving reviews of this saying it's not got a particularly good aerial. It's only quite short, but it seemed to work okay for me. You might want to think about changing it. Often stock aerials that come with radios aren't brilliant, but I've certainly found it worked for me, but I guess it depends on the situation and the range that you are to a repeater or to another station. Something else that this radio comes with that's a bit different is you can program it using Bluetooth. So there's an app you can download, and there's a version both for Android and for Apple iOS. The version I've got Android phone, so I downloaded that from the Google Play Store, so it's not some dodgy download it from somewhere else scenario. And I have to say that works pretty well. You can download and upload configuration to the radio from your phone, and that can actually sometimes be a bit easier than on the radio itself. I have to say though, this has got a very nice menu system. If I go back and think about the original UV-5R, the menu system on that wasn't very good. Trying to find the right setting and trying to program a repeater in was very difficult, I found. On this, it's actually really easy, and so you can actually program it from the front panel or via your phone. Or, of course, you can plug in a programming cable and use something like Chirp to do it, and Chirp does support the UV-5R Mini. I also quite like the fact you can charge it via USB. This does not come with a charger. It comes with a charging cable, or the USB cable, but it is USB-C, and that plugs straight into the battery. And the battery, I should also mention, is 1600 milliamp hours, so 1.6 amp hours, which is pretty decent. But yes, it comes with a USB-C charging port. You can't use that for anything else. It's just for charging the radio. You can't program it using that. But yeah, I like that because it means I don't have to have yet another charger just for this radio. I've got lots of other radios that have all got specific chargers. And then you leave the charger, or you just got a big box or a big drawer somewhere full of chargers. And standardising on USB-C, I think, is a great idea. And it seems to be becoming more popular, especially on some of these Chinese radios. So that's something I do like. One of the areas that's confused me slightly, and maybe people can comment on this, is the fact it's got two PTT buttons. So on the radio, you've got an A and a B display for different frequencies. Now, it's not a dual receive radio. You can't listen to two frequencies at once. It can do dual watch, so it can check on a regular basis the other frequencies. Imagine listening on frequency A, it will go and check on frequency B, and it will change to that frequency if it breaks squelch. So if you can sort of do that, but it's not a true dual receive radio. But what the PTT buttons do, there's an A and a B. It lets you transmit on either of those frequencies, depending on which button you press. Now, I'm not entirely sure why you would want to do that. I'd be slightly concerned about pressing the wrong PTT and transmitting on the wrong frequency, so that's one to watch out for. Maybe I'm missing the point, maybe there's some really good reason to have that, and maybe that's something that people can tell me where I've got that wrong, but I'm not really sure what the point of that is. All in all, I quite like this radio. It's pretty well built, it's extremely cheap, it's nice and easy to use, so it's got a good menu system, and certainly when I've used it, it's worked very well. And I was sort of thinking about other radios that we've recently had that are similar and trying to do a comparison. So the Quansheng UV-K5 is another radio that's quite similar in terms of its spec. It's dual bands. So I thought I'd do a quick comparison, because if you were thinking about which one to buy, this might be useful. So the Quansheng radio is slightly lower power. It's approximately 3.3 watts on VHF on high power, and 2.2 watts on UHF. It's slightly lower power. Similar in terms of the frequencies it operates on. It does airband. It does the same range around the amateur bands and slightly outside. It also does the broadcast bands as well. So similar. Also, the Quansheng's got an equally bad AM receiver. So again, don't buy one for that. The Quansheng comes with a monochrome display, which is also backlit, whereas the Baofeng comes with a colour display. The Quansheng, you can't program via Bluetooth, I don't believe. It has to be done via a programming cable if you want to program it from a computer. They've both got similar battery size. The Quansheng can also be charged via USB-C, but it also comes with a drop-in charge, which you don't get if you buy the Baofeng UV-5R Mini. The number of channels on the Quansheng radio is 200, whereas the Baofeng is 999. The build quality, certainly from how it feels to me, the Baofeng, I think, wins on that one. I think it feels like it's a little bit more robust. The Quansheng feels a little bit less, to me, just feels a little bit less strong, I suppose. If you dropped it, you might break it. They're less likely to break, I think, the Baofeng. I think the biggest difference, I think, between the Quansheng and the Baofeng is the Quansheng, you can download other software to it. People have written firmware to give it other features. So if you're a bit of a tinkerer and you like to update the firmware or change the firmware and be able to do other things with it, or you want to write your own, then the Quansheng is quite hackable. It can be updated. And it's a similar sort of price to the Baofeng. The Baofeng, I think, if you're not bothered about tinkering and updating it with different software, then actually I think the Baofeng is probably a better match. It's got the wireless programming, it's got the colour display. I personally not bothered about a drop-in charger, because you've got the USB to charge it, but that might be something that's important to you. All in all then, I think this is a nice radio. The UV-5R Mini is a perfectly good radio. It's a budget radio. It's not got the features you're going to get on a radio that costs hundreds of pounds from the likes of Kenwood or ICOM or Yaesu. But for the price, it's extremely good value. And I would certainly recommend it if it's something that you want. If you want a handheld, haven't already got one, and you want something that, or maybe as a backup radio to chuck in your bag, so you've got the option to use it if you're out and about when you want to, then I think this is a great choice. So that's it from me. Hopefully that was of interest.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, many thanks there to our friend Chris Howard, Mike Zero Tango Charlie Hotel, but he calls something right, Chris, for your feature on the Baofeng UV-5R Mini. And as they say, Dad, so good, and we got to listen to his feature ahead of time, that we went out and brought ourselves the exact same radio as well, didn't we?
Yeah, you brought it mine over from Ireland because AliExpress for some reason got my details all screwed up. But okay, now it's sorted. Nice little radio. Doesn't cost a fortune. I would suggest it's an ideal radio for a youngster because it's smaller. So guys with big hands, yeah, it's not a problem. I mean, I've used it quite okay. But it's a nice little radio. It works well from what I've seen, and it's got some nice functions on it that for a low-price radio is not bad. 1,000 memories is one thing, Colin. I don't think I'll be able to fill it up just yet.
I don't even think I've got 1,000 memories in my own head. But there you go. But no, as you say, it's nice. It's quite well built, isn't it, for the value of the radio? It's certainly a radio that I see to be a radio that I'd like to travel with a lot. Could throw it in a bag quite quickly. Won't have to worry about it too much. And if I lost it, wouldn't upset me as much as if I lost some other radios. So no, I think it's a great little purchase. to be honest. Yeah, and I know Baofeng, we've always spoken a lot about some of their radios filling that gap, and this one sort of again hits another sweet spot for them. So no, fair play to them for doing that, and really appreciate Chris's review. Obviously, guys, you get them from all your usual places you get Chinese radios from. You know, be it a local dealer or waiting a little while for the internet to deliver it to you. I think ours took roughly about 2 weeks to get to Ireland, if I remember rightly. Might have taken a little bit quicker if we'd sent you a London address, apart from they thought you were in Albania at that time. But other than that, as I say, it was very easy purchase. So yeah, check it out, guys. Hope you enjoyed that feature for now. So as I say, we've been doing that from there. I got on the air this week, which was great news. So we were out on the South Downs on Reigate Hill, and I'd say we were doing some work on 20 metres. Really enjoyed that, Dad. So thank you very much for helping facilitate that contacts for me. I think we worked Italy, Romania, and Bulgaria, if I remember off the top of my head. So that was a great opportunity to be out and about. So thanks a lot for sorting that out for us. And kudos to you. You're a man who can change an area really fast on top of your car. I'll give you credit for that.
Well, it wasn't only on top of my car, was it? I mean, I must admit, I did put my 17-foot mobile telescopic whip up and on the ground, and that worked well as well. Shame the bands weren't that great, and though most of the people that were on that afternoon just weren't listening. It was almost like they were broadcasting. They must have been able to hear us, but they obviously had their RF gain turned up so high that unless you were sort of S9 plus 20 or 40 dB, they didn't hear you. Their loss, but we had fun anyway.
Exactly. And a nice spot as well for coffee. So we had coffee and radio for an afternoon. It was a great spot. Well, talking about radio and coffee, of course, we need to let you know the next ICQ Podcast Digital Talk Group Net will be on the 4th of April. More information at ICQPodcast.com. So check that there for the times that we'll be running that event on the 4th of April. As always, check out our website, ICQPodcast.com, for the latest amateur and radio news, and always feel free to contact us via that website or our Twitter handles or our LinkedIn handles. From there, we really would appreciate hearing everything you got about the show, etc. We'd also like to, of course, thank our monthly subscription donors for helping us out with our running costs along the way. We haven't had any one-off donations, any new donors recently, so please, guys, if you've seen some value in the show, please do check out icqpodcast.com/donate. Well, as I say, everything's sent our way as they help us out with keeping your show advert-free and producing the shows that you've been asking for from the listener survey going forward. So please, guys, do consider us. Right, well, that just wraps up episode 479 of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, Dad. Of course, our most important job probably of the week now is to make a cup of tea for Mrs. B, and hopefully there's a treat or two left over, and I didn't eat them all when I was over last weekend.
Yeah, there's still a few those treats left that she bought for you, actually, and you didn't eat them all, so I'll let her eat some of them. And a nice cup of tea for your mum in a minute, and she'll be happy. One last thing, the talk group is available to everybody, not just when we're on. It's available for you to talk to other ICQ listeners. I will try and get on it a bit more, but you don't only have to talk to me, guys. There are other people on there to talk to as well.
Yeah, and including me now.
Yeah, including you now. And the other thing is it's like everything. If you don't put a call through, then people won't come to the group. So it's all right just blipping it and listening. But if people don't know you're there, you may not hear anybody. So put a call through every now and again, and people will come and join us.
Exactly. Well, guys, we're going to say 73s to you, and hope to catch you again in a fortnight's time. 73s.
Yeah, 73.